What up, y'all? It's Hitmaka. My new single out, Thought Box, and you know I got soul. You dig?
Just to give you some background, we're an R&B website, and I know you've done a lot for the genre for a little while now, so we definitely want to highlight some of the work that you've been doing for R&B.
Oh, yeah, hell yeah, that's my favorite shit. Let's get it.
Absolutely. So just want to get started, because you have done a lot for R&B, and a lot of people don't even realize the R&B aspect of your career. Let's just get started. What were some R&B albums that inspired you growing up?
Anita Baker, Rapture, Joe DeC, Diary of a Madman, Donnell Jones, Where I Want to Be. Those just to name a few.
Wow, so you actually, you know the classics.
Yeah, I love the classics, bro.
Cool, man. So let's get started on your career. Of course, this is kind of a full circle moment for me because I grew up listening to Yung Berg, the rapper, and I remember all that was going on during that era. And now to see you, pretty much on the top of urban hip hop and R&B, just talk about that transition. How did that all happen for you? Because to me, I haven't really been paying too much attention, but it's just like all of a sudden you're huge.
I really just been putting in work for the last maybe 4 or 5 years. I've been making my way up, the charts, and then as of lately, the past 3 years, I've had multiple number ones. I think my first number one was Big Sean, Bounce Back. Then my next one was Chris Brown, Party. Then my next one was then I had another one, Meek Mill, Dangerous. Another one, A Boogie, Look Back at It. Another one, 1942, G-Eazy, Namir, so Yo Gotti. So I had a lot of different number ones, and then it just spread it out to me getting my gig at Atlantic Records, and then I always worked heavily with Jeremiah, and I started expanded working heavily with Ty, and here we are now.
And of course, along with the songwriting and producing, you're the VP of A&R over at Atlantic Records. I guess talk about how you got into that position, and a lot of artists, they just want to stay as artists, they don't want to go into the executive side. What made you decide to go that route?
I've always wanted to be executive from beginning. So with that being said, I was able to have those great records that we spoke about, and with me having those records, I was able to meet Craig Calvin, I was able to meet Julie Greenwald, and they brought me into the fold of Atlantic. And over the last couple of years, 2 years, we've sold 15 million records together. So it's just been a blessing to get with the people that have the right energy and have the same focus and the same goals that I have, and they were able to put me in a lot of places, and I was able to capitalize on it.
Right. Now, take me through your creative process, especially when it comes to an R&B record. You mentioned that you work heavily with Jeremiah, with Ty Dolla. Just talk about that creative process when putting together an R&B song in particular.
We just go in there, shoot melodies, and then I write the lyrics with my partner, Sean. He's one of the best person with the melodies I've ever worked with in my whole career. And we come up with these records, and then the people come to the studio, and they cut all the records, whether it be Ty, Jeremiah, and I'll have a plethora of records. We'll probably do 10 a night. We'll probably keep 3 or 4 of them. Then I have 7 to really move around and shop. And that process will just continue and turn into songs that are out on the radio now that they might have passed on. And then new records that they have on the way that they kept for themselves.
Right. And I love what you've done, with R&B. And something I'm curious about, you've worked with Tinashe, over the last couple of, a year or so, and you kind of brought her into a new direction with some of the records we've heard. How do you get an artist to trust your direction? Because obviously they have their influences, what they want to do, and then of course you have your mindset on what you want the artist to do. How do you bring them on board with what your ideas are?
The hit. I've got a good track record. I've been having a good. I think people have grown accustomed to trust what my taste level is, and so the artists are reaching out to me and they want to work with me, and we're collectively coming up with great ideas. They're combing through ideas that I already have done, and they're saying this works for me, that doesn't work for me, this does work, and rework this. And it's just that type of process. It's not more so like we go in and cut from scratch or whatever. I'll be okay, working with let's say I'll go through the archive of records we have, or if there's some beats that we think might be fitting, then we'll just do it on the spot, and then the artist will come in and say, I love this, and we'll cut it.
Right. And one thing that you've kind of brought to the game that I think is very unique is you started sampling late 90s and 2000s records. That I don't think I've really seen a lot of that happening in Berg. I got to admit, you're making me feel old because I grew up in that era. But what's your mindset when you're like, how do you choose what to sample from those eras? Because a lot of people that's like near and dear to their heart. How do you decide what to sample?
There's just songs that I love, songs that I grew up on, songs that personally match my taste level. It's not like an artist is coming to me saying, hey, can you redo this song for me? Most of the time, there's just songs that I collaborate with my guy Paul Capin and Cardiac and co that I work with. And we decide, like, okay, I want to do this. I have to replay something. And then we'll just take it from there and create the record and write the record on top of it.
And, you've touched on a lot of your accolades that you mentioned earlier, a lot of records sold. And one thing I'll say about your records are they're actually being played on radio. A lot of people don't put the emphasis on radio anymore. They try to gear towards streaming. But, as an executive at a major label, is radio so important to you?
I mean, radio is the most important thing to me. I grew up, I'm a radio baby, so I love radio. I also do love streaming for what it does for your career and what goes on. But for the most part, to me personally, radio is the most important thing that's just like captivated me and like growing up and my whole creation of these records. So I always wanted to be on radio. I love streaming platforms. I'm excited to be on there. I've done 1 billion streams, but with songs I wrote and produced. But I definitely have an affinity and a love for radio.
Right. And how important is it for you to get like the first single on a project? Because I know you've done a lot of those.
I mean, it's probably the most important thing. I probably won't do the song unless I have a first single on, like it's gonna be the first single unless I'm doing multiple songs in your project. That's not from a cocky perspective. It's more so like I feel like right now I have my finger on the pulse of what's going on in the music industry, and I think that it would be best in the artist's best interest and my best interest for us to jump off and have a crazy record springboard and be the first single off the project. I aim for that at all times.
Absolutely. Now, 2 records I want to touch on, both which will probably make our top 50 songs of the year for R&B. The first one being the Teyana Taylor record that you did. Really had that 90s feel to it, and I think you executed it really well. How did that one come together?
Well, pretty much I came up with the idea with my guy Bugs, and then me, Bugs, and Cardiac produced the record. Cardiac did the drums on the record. I came up with the idea with Bugs. We got the sample, chopped it up, sent it to Paul Cap, and he replayed everything. And then I got with Teyana and Eric Billinger actually wrote that record. And that one I didn't write. I just co-produced that one.
Oh, okay. And then the other record that you did this year was for Chris Brown and Her Come Together. We love that record over here. How did that one come together?
That was a demo done by myself and my artist Rocky, and it was something that we had that we were cooking up or whatever, and it was just something that was sitting. I actually went to Chris's house to see him because we are frequent collaborators. Even on the last album before Indigo, we probably did 20-something records on that album. So I went to his house. He ended up picking 20-something records. He cut them all, and then he hit me back and said, yo, Her is on this record. We mixed the record, and I'm excited how it came out. That's one of my favorite records as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you've touched on, we've touched on some of the work that you've done behind the scenes. You just recently put out a new single. Just talk about what you have coming up along with the single.
Oh, well, my new single's called Thought Box featuring Meek Mill, 2 Chainz, A Boogie, Tiger, and YB in the Mirror. And it's a club banger. It's going crazy right now. Shout out to all the DJs and everybody supporting it, streaming it. Radio DJs is playing it. I'm going to follow up with more singles on the way. I have my artist Rocky. She's on one of my singles. I have a couple of more singles that are going to come out. So I'm just loading up, gearing up for the project. What else to be aware of is I probably have like 14 more singles coming out on different artists that's in the game that are on the way that are already done. So just gearing up, man, just preparing for the rest of the year and putting in the work to dominate 2020.
Awesome. Any R&B songs that we could look forward to?
New Ty Dolla $ign coming, new Jeremiah coming, new Rocky coming. New Trey songs coming. I did probably half of his album.
Okay.
it's so much to be on the lookout for. Like just off the top of the head, that's what comes to mind.